Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another discussion video. Today, I want to talk about all things Nappa. Yes, Nappa is finally getting his own archetype and deck in Evolution Booster, which was unfortunately delayed back to March 26th, almost a month further back. There you go with COVID again, kind of raining on everyone's parade. It is very, very unfortunate, but we're still looking forward to this stuff. I think this is a very, very cool archetype, very unique from Bandai's design perspective, so kudos to them. But I also think it has the ability to potentially fill some niche spots in the meta with the way the leader and the archetype kind of works, and we will talk about that as we get into it. So guys, if you're new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell so you miss a video. If you want to help support the channel, there are many ways down in the description to do so. Particularly today, if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards you see in today's video, make sure to use my link in the description to TCG Player. It does help out the channel quite a bit. That being said, let's get started with the leader. So we have Nappa. He's a 10k red sand, which will be relevant later on. So activate main once per turn, add one card from life to hand, then play up to one Cyberman card from your deck. Then shuffle your deck. So this is definitely a super unique thing on a leader, right? Take a life, play a battle card, and we'll go over the different Cybermen you can play later on. But what I just kind of noticed here actually is that it just says play a Cyberman. It doesn't say color, doesn't say energy cost. So that's a little bit weird, only in the sense that they're gonna have to kind of future-proof any Cybermen they print in the future. Like, Cybermen are meant to be like weak, kind of like crony characters, so they probably won't print any like 2 or 4 costs or 3 costs or 5 costs that do anything outlandish. But if they did, they'd have to somehow restrict them to not be playable off this leader if they were too powerful. Just a weird thing I just kind of noticed. But anyways, the Awaken says when it lays 4 or less, you may switch up to one of your energy to active mode, then play up to 2 Cybermen from your deck. That is also obviously incredibly unique. Awaken and play 2 battle cards, and yes, they are very specific battle cards, which we'll get into. But man, playing 2 battle cards and Awakening, if you just look at them at like a 5k combo perspective, that's essentially a untap 1, draw 2 Awaken, but the cards give you a bit more value than that, which is very cool. So the Awaken side, we have auto when this card attacks, play up to 1 Cyberman card from your deck, then shuffle. Auto once per turn. When one of your Cyberman cards is KO'd, choose one of your opponent's battle cards and give it minus 10,000 power for the turn. There's going to be a lot of that minus 10k power stuff, so removing certain battle cards should be pretty easy. Then activate main once per turn, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, add up to 1 red Vegeta or Nappa card with energy cost of 4 or less among them to your hand. Then shuffle your deck. If you added a card, you choose a card in your hand and place it at the bottom of your deck. So this effect's really cool for several reasons. One, when it says add up to 1 red Vegeta or Nappa with energy cost of 4 or less, you're going to want to look through the card pool and just look at all the old school Vegetas and Nappas that may have come out over the years. There'll definitely be way more Vegetas than Nappas, that's for sure. But you're gonna want to take a look at the card pool, see what red Vegetas kind of fall under that. But the other cool thing is when you add a card, you take a card from your hand and put it to the bottom of your deck. So while it's not a raw plus, you do get to take any Cybermen that you draw, put them back into your deck so your leader can get the most usage out of them. So that's also a very cool thing the leader has going for it there. Anyways, let's take a look at the Cybermen we can play. So, Cybermen Endless Explosion is actually an older card. Came out in set 7. It's a 1-drop green battle card with blocker. Permanent, you can play as many copies of this card in your deck as you like, which is also shared on the red Cybermen. We'll get to in a second. Auto when this card's KO'd, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 1 or less and KO it. So just a little bit of added value there. I think this is the best Cybermen you could probably play off the leader, because the leader basically says attack, take a life on the unawakened side, and then attack on the awakened side, and then basically play a blocker. Like, that is some really high value. You are losing out on a draw, you are losing out on seeing a random card, which kind of gives me like Cell Surge vibes, where yes, the top 5 search effect is quite powerful, but it's not quite a raw plus. This is technically a raw plus, but you're not really increasing your hand size, which may give you some issues against hand control, but there are going to be some ways to circumvent that via certain different side deck cards, as well as different main deck techs. Like maybe you even play some copies of Sand Instincts. If hand control is popular in the meta, you pitch Sand Instincts, you use the energy to draw it back up. There are things like that you can do. Cyberman Infinite Assault, we have a 1-drop red battle card. This is actually new coming out of Evolution Booster. Auto when this card's KO'd, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with 10,000 power or less and KO it. So there will be different ways in the deck that we can trigger our own KOs on the Cybermen. So, for example, you can use leader effect to minus 10, something that's 20k, and this can pop it if it falls under 10k. That is quite good because, you know, turn player can order their autos in any way they want to. But also there are some ways to make these Cybermen aggressive, which we'll see with Yamcha Wolfang pitching fastball. Man, that's kind of a mouthful. But anyways, one quick thing I want to say about the Cybermen. I think it's going to be a bit weird in the beginning of playing Nappa, just to figure out the right number of Cybermen to play in the deck, because yes, you can play any amount of copies you want. I think the blocker is the better one to go for, but there is going to be a reason to go for the red one as well. I don't know. We'll see. We'll mess with ratios. If you have an idea for how many Sidemen you'll play in your deck, let me in the comments below what you think about that. But anyways, let's look at the Yamcha Unison. It's so funny how they made a Yamcha Unison for this deck, because obviously Sidemen is infamous for killing Yamcha. Kind of weird they went with this baseball Yamcha though. But anyways, let's give it a read. Auto once per turn, when one of your red Sidemen cards is KO'd, you may play that card from your drop area with its skills negated for the turn. So that is immediate value right there. Not even a +1 or a minus marker effect. As long as Unison's in play, when your red Sidemen's KO'd, you just play it back for free. That's honestly pretty good. Activate main +1, choose one of your red or green Sidemen cards and KO it, which will trigger both of their effects. If you do, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and it gets minus 10,000 power for the turn. Okay, so remember, you can +1 this, your Awakened Leader auto should trigger, and then Sidemen should trigger. So that right there should be able to kill a 30k battle card, which is honestly pretty nuts. Activate main -5, choose up to 9 of your red or green battle cards with energy cost of 1, and they get plus 11,000 power for the turn. So obviously that's all of your Sidemen, but that could also be things like Sankaba, Intensifying Power Trunks. That could also actually be a really cool thing going for a game in the late game with that -5 there. Anyways, let's see the rest of the Nappa stuff. So we have a Vegeta and a Nappa as they're kind of messing with the Sidemen here. So we'll read the Vegeta first, which is also going to be searchable off the Awakened Leader. Barrier, activate main, once per turn, choose one of your Sidemen cards and KO it, draw one card, then choose up to 2 of your red Sidemen cards and then get plus 11,000 power for the turn. This card seems quite good for a few reasons. One, he's a 2-drop barrier, so green can't just like remove him easily. Honestly, most decks are not gonna be able to remove him easily because getting through barrier is one of the more difficult things. Not impossible, but one of the more difficult things. Activate main once per turn. That effect is really good there. KO one of your Sidemen, which again, your Yamcha Unison will bring it right back. And then you draw one, so that kind of fixes your leader's drawing issues. And then you get to make 2 of your Sidemen relevant attackers, which is good. And then when it goes back to your opponent's turn, by the way, if they attack them with the Sidemen and KO them, they could potentially lose their board as well if they have certain battle cards in play. So I think this card's pretty solid. Nappa, testing the opposition. This card is just Value Town. Auto, if your other card's a Nappa card, when this card's played, play up to 2 Sidemen cards from your deck or drop area, then shuffle your deck if you look through it. So 2 energy, essentially spamming 2 blockers as well as own activate main effect, which will just linger on the board. Choose up to one of your red Sidemen cards and gets plus 11,000 power for the turn. So again, that theme of making them 15k attackers. I think these cards are both good, honestly. I'm so much more impressed with this deck so far than I was with green yesterday. If you guys watched that video, I did talk about the green stuff for Evolution Booster if you want to check it out. But anyways, let's check out some of the boss monsters you can play in the deck. So the one that comes in the set is Nappa Break Cannon Unleashed. We have a 4-drop, Energy Exhaust, Deflect, Double Strike, Dual Attack. So really quick, talking about the fact that he's red-green. We already know you're playing mostly red cards in the deck from what we've just seen. There are a good number of green cards in the sense of you can play any number of the green Sidemen that you want to play. And I don't think you're going to play much more red-green than that. I don't think you're actually going to want to charge red-green. And that might just be one of the evolutions of multicolor going forward. The elimination of actually charging multicolor cards. Because turn 1 has actually become very, very important in Dragon Ball Super. Back in multicolor format where every deck was multicolor, every single deck was essentially skipping their turn 1 play. But in a deck like this, for example, where you can get your Yamcha Unison online turn 1 and play a Sidemen turn 1, just do a lot of different turn 1 things. I think the turn 1 in this deck is going to be relatively important. I don't think you're going to play a ton of red-green cards. But anyways, let's just get into his effect. Auto once per turn. If there are a total of 6 or more battle cards with energy costs of 1 in your battle area and drop area, that part right there just save the card, also counting the drop area. When this card attacks, it gets plus 10,000 power for the turn. Then choose up 3 of your opponent's battle cards and KO them. Okay, me personally, I mean, I'm a big fan of green because I love straight removal. I love dealing with my opponent's board. It just makes me feel very, very at ease as a player. So this card, being a very aggressive threat, 30k dual attack double striker that also KOs battle cards and has a very easy activating condition, sign me up. With Deflect, this is going to be great against blue. No barriers, so it is going to be a little bit weak against green with Charismatic Villain, but we do have another great boss monster we can play in SS3 Gohan Master Surpass. So he's a 4-drop as well. Energy Exhaust, Deflect, Barrier, Alliance, red-green. And also keep in mind with Alliance here, Nappa pretty much automatically puts Alliance targets into play. What I mean by that is when you put the Sidemen in play, your Alliance is set up very, very easily. As you might have noticed in like red-green launch, you do have to jump through a few more hoops to get Alliance cards into play. In this type of deck, that is really a non-issue. So Alliance red-green, this card gains power equal to the total power of the cards. Switch to rest mode by the skill for the battle. Then if your leader card is a mono red Saiyan, deal 1 damage to your opponent, and until the start of your next turn, your opponent can't play battle cards with 20,000 power or less unless they place 1 card from a life in their drop area each time. So upon release, this card was looked at as really solid, a really, really good card. Only problem was, weren't a ton of mono red Saiyan leaders to actually play with this card. Nappa being a mono red sand, perfect. This card is very playable in the deck, has deflect and barrier, so it's a little bit better against green. They also just can't charismatic villain any of your other plays because they will have to burn a life if they choose to do that. So I think both of these are going to be great considerations for the deck. Nappa, definitely some better finishing power, but Gohan will definitely put your opponent in a bind backed up by a ton of Cybermen blockers. Honestly, it seems pretty good to me. All right, now for some of the extra cards, we have Unexpected Casualties, a 1-drop extra card. Activate main deflated cards, a red Nappa card. You choose 1 card in your hand and discard it. Don't love that. Then send this card from drop area to warp. Okay, so this is actually a drop area effect. Play up to 1 Cyberman from your deck, then shuffle your deck. I don't know if we need that necessarily. I mean, it is a 0 cost in the drop area essentially, because when you activate it, unless they add an additional cost, you don't have to pay that drop area cost. But the activate battle says choose 1 of your Cyberman cards and KO it, draw 1 card, then choose 1 of your opponent's battle cards and gets minus 10,000 power for the turn. That's actually pretty good. Okay, that is pretty solid. So you do get a draw, which is kind of counteracted by the activate main, but that's fine. You get to KO 1 of your Cybermen, minus 10 something, and then your Cybermen will trigger to kill something 10k. So this is actually an activate battle method of killing something during battle, which is really cool. I actually like a lot in this design how they're kind of stringing these cards together. I think that's actually really solid. Testing the opposition, we have a 2-drop counter attack. This is the same thing as the one we read yesterday, where it's basically going to be Red's version of a sparking negate. When it lays 5 or less, you don't actually need sparking in your drop area. It negates an attack, spawns a token, and that token gains blocker. So you basically just stop 2 attacks for 0 energy and 1 card, which I do think is pretty solid. So anyway, guys, my final thoughts on Nappa. I pretty much like all the cards that I've read. I do think the archetype is pretty well off. I definitely like it much more than the TN stuff from yesterday. I don't know, it's weird. I do think it's a bit weird that, you know, it spams the board with 1-drops, doesn't necessarily draw cards, which I think is a really cool theme. I think you gotta be careful for certain things like Dormant Potential Unleash, Shocking Death Ball, things that can, like, you know, really easily snipe your 1-drops. So green may prove to be a tough matchup depending on how things go. But I do really like the theme of the deck. I do want in the comments below what you think about it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.